Welcome to Less House, More Moola podcast. I'm Laura Lynch, a certified financial planner professional and your host. For me, alternative or tiny living is more than just a lifestyle of minimalism or lower cost housing. It allows me to live a life aligned with my values. And as of October 2024, it also allowed us to become 100% debt and mortgage free. If you are looking for alternatives to the conventional path because you want to be more financially resilient and kinder to the earth, you have found the right podcast. So hit that subscribe button because new episodes are out every Thursday. Hey, if you showed up to Less House, More Moola podcast recently because of the YouTube tiny home tour or my conversation with Zach and John last week, thank you so much for joining me. YouTube and podcasting are two entirely different mediums. What we do over here is slow conversations on one topic or one story. There isn't a flashy B-roll of images holding our short attention spans. It is the raw and sometimes messy thoughts of folks in alternative living that are recorded here, including my own. This week, I want to celebrate the criticism I have received about my tiny life. I am sharing this here because we all will face some form of criticism if and when we do something unconventional in life. So let me back up. Last week, I had the momentary blip of more exposure than usual. Last week, our tiny house tour was published on YouTube on the Tiny House Tour channel, which has a couple million followers. So if you're curious about our tiny home, head over to the Tiny House Tours channel and check it out. You can see all the ins and outs of our home and the one I'm recording from right now. I stayed with the comments when the show came out for 2 days, replying to those who had compliments, talking about questions, and the comments that people had about our house that we built a lot of years ago. I knew from being around in social media that the comments would start to degrade at some point, that people who get their kicks out of trolling or negative comments would come out of the woodwork. So most of the comments in the first 2 days were quite lovely. There were some authentic questions. The most devoted followers of that channel had a lot to say. Then I sort of checked out after a couple of days. But I did stick around long enough to catch a couple of themes in the negative comments that I thought were interesting. And I just did a lot of self-evaluation about that experience and really took away some key lessons that I wanted to talk about today. First, I think it's important to understand that we didn't set out in 2016 to build a perfect tiny house for display purposes. We're not tiny home builders professionally. We set out to build something that could be moved across the country, first and foremost, to the really stunning land that we purchased for cash. We wanted to build for cash. We wanted to have something relatively comfortable to stay in when we were here out west. Fast forward 8 years and we're living here full time in our home that was never really designed for that in mind, but nonetheless, it works well and serves our greater purpose of being mortgage free and having the lifestyle that we want. Likewise, our land, which some viewers disliked a lot, was a purchase that really could not be optimized for the most beautiful parcel in the entire world because we had frankly limited resources. We didn't want to finance land, and this was land that we could purchase for cash. So that's what we did. This is life. Compromise and trade-offs to gain what is most important. And for us, what is most important from a land perspective is access to public lands for hiking and biking and mountain biking and recreating, privacy, and most of all, the freaking stunning quiet that we have here. It is so quiet, it's deafening, and I love that. The great thing that I have experienced because I've lived in quite a few places is that you really can find beauty anywhere and you can learn what is beautiful to you. in 2004 when I moved from the green and lush Virginia to Nevada desert. I dreaded it. I was so upset about moving to Nevada, but I fell madly in love with the rugged mountains, the dry juniper-scented air, and the ability to flee into the public lands to escape my modern pressure cooker of a life. And so I really fell in love with the West after being exposed to it. Looking back, there was a good deal of luck and serendipity in finding this parcel where our tiny house is, because I can get up from my desk and walk into the box canyon with my dogs off leash, knowing that there's nowhere for them to go because it's a box canyon and I'm not likely to encounter anyone, so they can be off leash and have so much fun. Finding this parcel was truly a stroke of luck. It's not something I could have probably executed with better planning. We just got really fortunate to be here in this beautiful Plaza Blanca area where we are. When I think back on the priorities that we had in front of us when we were building our tiny house back in 2016 and 17, we were building for basic needs for us to live comfortably, but most importantly, we were building with serendipity. As I said, we were building for cash. And so we built largely with the things that showed up in our life. I didn't optimize for the perfect cabinet layout with a custom cabinet package or the most expensive versions of things. We were really cobbling together what showed up in front of us. And what showed up was pretty damn amazing. And so we were able to build this tiny house just with the extra income that we were making at the time. So let's get back to my lessons and learnings on criticism. I would say the key takeaway here is that for the first time in my life, I actually felt prepared for the wide variety of comments that we got on our tiny house build. I would never call myself someone where things like easily roll off your back or you're insensitive to the opinions of others. In fact, I have far too frequently taken personally everything in my professional life. I felt responsible for everybody's reactions all the time. So I was really glad to see this change in the last week. This is actually one of the ways that we can grow in our personal strength over time. When I look back 7 years ago, at the time when I was taking this brave step into this career path that I'm in, and each subsequent stage at which I have pushed against the norms and rebelled against the constraints and frankly remade my view of capitalism while helping people make financial and life plans, I realize that enduring the criticism is a critical part of being able to bring something new into the world. 2 years ago, when I was preparing to launch my unconventional financial planning firm and podcast, I spent a lot of time thinking about how I would deal with naysayers, negativity, and trolling. In my career, I have tended to be very serious and taken things very personally. I wondered if the pain of the social media rejection was worth the risk of trying to put something meaningful out there. So somewhere I heard the concept of detractors re-entrench fans, and so I was able to assign some positivity or positive outcome to negativity that I knew would come at some point. Then when I did leave my corporate financial planning role and launch my business and this podcast, I've heard of some of the critique and criticism from my past coworkers and learned to move past that. Just a few days before the Tiny Home Tour went live last week, I listened to a We Can Do Hard Things podcast about the feedback, or feed out, as Glennon, Amanda, and Abby call negative feedback that comes from an audience of people that you don't know personally. And I was prepared for all the ways in which a woman's work in the world is likely critiqued or criticized. So even up into the days before, I was preparing for what came after. This one video has brought more attention to the work that I've been doing for the past 2 years than anything I have done so far, so I feel privileged to have gotten access to the Tiny Home Tour's large audience. And so at this moment, all of the learning and preparation that I have done for criticism has come into the spotlight. I realize that we all have filters for the world that we live in. There are ways of perceiving what is good or optimal or right. We all have judgy opinions. I have judgy opinions based on my life experiences too. My life is not a good fit for most people. My home was not built for most people. It was built for us. And I think that is the key challenge for all of us, is to build a life for us and not for everybody else. Choosing a smaller space and maybe making compromises in this way in order to accomplish more values-driven things is a pretty radical idea in our capitalistic, consumption-based world. As I've said many times before, we're programmed, we're all coached by all the screens, everywhere, all the time, that our job is to live in our wealthy economy by consuming as many of the niceties of life as possible. To choose something different that looks like, hey, I might not have as much floor space or as many pantry cabinets or the most modern bathtub is contrary to every magazine, every TV, every underlying motivation for which we live in our lives in the United States. In fact, to just stop striving for more, to stop striving for better, to use what you have and to be delighted by whatever comes to you, whether or not it's perfect, is pretty rebellious.
Hey, you know how in the tiny and alternative living community, we're always talking about parking challenges? Well, Eric and I want to help with that. This is why we're opening up 2 parking spaces on our land in northern New Mexico. In addition to the amazing scenery, hiking, rafting, exploring, and the cool artist community, you will have access to the shared resources to fix any problems you might have encountered on your rig. For all the details on parking and problem solving, check out episode 88 of this podcast and then go to altamericandream.com to send us a request for parking.
I also wanted to mention that a slower life is both the goal and the path. One of the most precious lessons that I've learned over the years of working on different homes is the gift of slowing down and allowing things to show up or come together in your life. Things that come unexpectedly to fill a need that you have. But to accept these gifts, you actually have to slow down. You can't just run out and buy the latest, greatest everything. You have to slow down and allow things to show up in your life or to show their purpose or to appear out of the closet to fill the void that you have. So would my life be one microatom more delightful if my bathtub was freestanding with smooth sides instead of the pebble tile surround that I grouted myself? Actually, no. I reject the notion that new is better. Let me say it again. I reject the notion that new is better. In fact, in life, I seem to be seeing that older was built with better quality and built to last. Newer is built with planned obsolescence so that it can be sold to you again in 2 years. My vehicle is a 2004 Toyota with a ripped driver's seat. The sunroof doesn't open and the subwoofer is blown out. I'm grateful that in 2004 Toyota was building vehicles to last because reliability and less technology is a better fit for what I'm trying to accomplish, which is a lower cost lifestyle so that I can spend more time hiking and less time worried about affording my life. So back to the criticisms of tiny life. If this lifestyle is something that you want, a smaller footprint, less space, and a gentler life, you are going to face criticism. The world, your neighbors, your family, your colleagues, someone will not understand why it is that you don't want to follow the conventional path, why you want something different for yourself. And if by chance you decide to make your life a little public, like we did, in order to encourage others to choose something different, then you will face even more criticism, because criticism by the anonymous is even more strong, vocal, and sharp than criticism by those who care about you or even those who know you just a little. We have a herd mentality. This is a bias of conformity that is programmed into our prefrontal cortex. We have survived by staying together and conforming into community. To exit that conformity requires some level of bravery for everyone. Luckily, on the other side, there is another community of millions of people who have chosen to live in some other way, who have rejected the notion that newer is better, and who have chosen a path to reduce, reuse, recycle, who believe that we can have a personal effect on the earth that sustains us. So aligning with other like-minded, radical, rebellious people in this community is how we find support and how we can digest and compost the critique of the rest of our society. I finally can say that I would rather have a handful of people I admire whose opinion matters and disregard the rest than to try to make everyone approve of me or my life. Being liked is no longer one of the values that I aim for. Instead, I focus on the impact that I want to have in the world, on living a gentle life, and moving towards resilience for myself and for the earth. So how do we get ready for criticism? Doing things that are brave and daring and innovative may be done in increments in order to build the self-efficacy around dealing with critique. Self-efficacy is the way that we build confidence in ourselves through our own experience. Starting with smaller, braver things that are maybe inconsequential and learning how to navigate the criticisms and growing our strength in this area in preparation for bigger, braver things is how we get ready for that criticism. We build up bravery over time. Doing so is critical because we may not help or serve or build the things we could if we stay inside the box. Had I stayed in my world of corporate conformity, I would have said nothing of consequence by saying the same thing that everybody else was saying. Things like, mortgage debt is good. You need to save $2.5 million to retire and trust the financial system for 100% of your financial security. But instead, today, I say our life decisions like buying a house have a huge impact on our financial security. Choice about how we spend our time is a goal we can have sooner rather than later. And our true wealth is about more than money. It is our communities, our relationships, our skills, and a lot about our health. I quite literally had to leave the American dream behind in order to have the freedom to say these things. Perhaps as a consequence of my getting older or just all the self-development and self-healing that I have engaged in, I've moved to the far other end of that spectrum of being worried about what other people think, and I mostly only care about what I think about myself. I have stayed true to my own values, and I have given my best to others, and I continue to do that every day. I am so damn proud of the life that we created, and I really don't care about all the comments. So I'm ironically, amazingly grateful for the criticism that we have received in the last week. I took a risk allowing our personal home build project to be exposed to such a broad audience. I did it because I believe there were people out there who still need help figuring out the money part of tiny living, who are stuck wanting to do that thing, but they can't figure out how to make it work for them financially. And so I exposed my private life to the public eye in hopes that a few more people who need help would be able to find me. And what I have learned is you must be doing something worth noticing if people are going to spend their precious time and energy to criticize. So that is the lesson that I have learned about criticism in the last week and about the criticism that we will all face if we do something unique and different. If you're ready to take a leap into an unconventional life that might get criticized, it's important to root into the values and know what is true to you. You can find all of that out if you take the values quiz that's on my website. Go to thetinihouseadvisor.com. Thanks for joining Less House, More Moola podcast, episode 103 this week. I look forward to catching back up with you next week.
Less House, More Moola podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Laura Lynch, here in my tiny house. I'm so grateful to you for being along on this journey with me. We are not alone in wanting to live a life that is more gentle on our earth and provides us with financial freedom. So when you have a conversation with someone else considering what alternatives are out there, make sure you share this podcast with them. Let's bring them along with us. Please see the show notes for an important disclosure regarding the Tiny House Advisor LLC in this episode.